Megyn Kelly, and we begin with the story of a mother's promise to seek justice for her daughter. That promise led them on an 8-year journey that ended this month at the White House. When Nacole's daughter, who we are calling J.S., ran away, upset over a bad grade, the teenager was lured into a nightmare situation. At just 15 years old, she says she was sold, it's happening in America, to hundreds of men for sex, mostly on the website Backpage.com. At the family's request, we are not giving their full names in order to try to protect their identities, but watch this.
Some of my favorite hobbies are collecting porcelain dolls and playing soccer, of course.
J.S. grew up in a typical middle-class home with a great family.
I was a happy kid. I did sports, played musical instruments, violin, piano. I was really kind of like the jack of all trades, wanted to do everything. I was really happy.
At 15 years old, she started to fall behind in one of her classes. Scared to show her parents her report card, she made a plan.
I ran away, got on a city bus, never done that. Didn't even know how city buses worked. I was like, everything's fine.
She made her way to a homeless shelter where she met a young woman who promised to help take care of her. The two went to a party where she was raped. Before that party, she was a virgin.
I wanted to keep my innocence for like a special person, and like I wasn't able to.
She then met Baruti Hobson, who invited her to stay with him. Within days, the 15-year-old was having sex with Hobson and started working for him as a prostitute. Hobson took provocative photos and posted them to sites like Backpage.com.
He really capitalized on the fact that my parents would be highly disappointed and not love me anymore. I'm dirty. He was very convincing in all of that.
While working for Hobson, she was arrested in a sting operation where J.S. told the police officer that she was 18 years old, and they let her go. But before she left, an officer took a photo of her. Later, as her parents kept pushing, investigators were able to use that photo to track her down to a posting on Backpage.com and planned a rescue operation to save the 15-year-old J.S.
To see her come home and have that light gone out of her eyes was painful. I didn't think it would ever return.
She told investigators that she was sold up to 15 times a day.
She had long, beautiful brown hair. She had that sparkle in her eye. And I picked her up, and her hair was very short and choppy, and her nails were done, and she just didn't even look like herself. I'm looking around this parking lot for my child, and didn't realize that the child in the back of the police car was my child.
Joining me now, we referred to her as J.S. in the tape, but now she says she's comfortable using her name. Jessica, welcome. You're here with your mom, Nacole. Thank you both so much for being here. I have to say, Nacole, what you did to save your daughter is nothing short of heroic. We're going to walk the audience through it because there are other parents out there right now who don't know what to do with their missing child or their child who's chosen to leave. But let's go back to the beginning. You're a successful kid, right? Honor roll?
Yeah.
Varsity soccer?
And wrestling, went to state in wrestling.
So
violinist.
You were happy?
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like a broken family. It wasn't an abusive situation.
No, I had great parents, great siblings, good in school.
So how is it, because we saw in the tape piece you got a bad grade, your one sibling went to college or left home. What was it? What was the trigger that made you run away?
Bullies in school. Girls didn't understand why a girl would want to wrestle. And I didn't want to disappoint my parents, and so I figured just leaving would totally, they can't be disappointed if I'm not there. So that was...
You got on a bus?
Yep.
And wound up in downtown...
Seattle.
Nowhere, not knowing anything?
Nothing. I didn't even know I didn't know any directions, anything.
We talk in the piece about the fact that you were raped, and that changed everything for you. You didn't see yourself the same again after that.
No.
Because after that, you came back, you were returned home for about
10 days.
For 10 days.
Yeah.
And you left again.
No, I was gone for 10 days the first time I left, and I was home for about 2 months.
Okay.
And then I left again.
You left again. Why did you leave that second time?
I just didn't, I don't know, I really was dealing with a lot of shame, and I don't think any parent knows how to, take that on. And it was, I just didn't feel like I belonged there.
And that's when, the second time when the
Yes.
sex trafficking started happening.
Yes.
How does it happen, in your head? How do you go from a girl who has been raped and not long ago was the, quote, normal American girl to sitting in a hotel room with, your trafficker making you subject yourself to 15 men a day?
It happens faster than you can imagine. It's just so much manipulation, and at one point you start believing that this is, what you're meant to do, and that it's not necessarily a bad thing, and then you just shut down mentally and emotionally, and you just kind of go through the motions, and you don't really think about anything else, just trying to survive. And
How long was the period that you were doing that?
108 days.
108 days. And the entire time, Mom was fighting in every way she knew how to find her daughter, which was harder than it should be.
Right.
When was the first time you heard of Backpage.com?
Not until the trial of Brody Hobson.
Okay, so you didn't know about that when you were searching for her? Because
I didn't.
Now this has been outed. We talked about it on our show when we did a show on sex trafficking, as it's basically a clearinghouse for young girls who are for sale. And it's been operating in America for a long time with impunity for far too long, because they say, hey, it's not us. We don't place the ads. We don't have responsibility over all the ads that come in here. And so just before that, though, how was it you connected with the detective who said, I'm going to find her?
So we were actually searching a different website for our daughter. We were searching Craigslist, who came before Backpage, and that's where we were looking for her. And basically, we connected with the detective just through missing picture want ads. We're distributing flyers of our child everywhere and anywhere we could. She had been arrested while she was missing, but they returned her to the pimp because they couldn't prove who she was. And when he saw her missing persons ad, he's like, oh, I've seen this child before, and that's when he started trying to find her again.
So how did he find you?
They did a sting and acted as if they were somebody soliciting sex, and ended up arresting me in the hotel room.
And did you know that he was there on a mission from your parents? Like,
No,
this is...
not at all.
Can I just jump back one step? When the men, because we talked about this with the other women who spoke out about this, the men who would pay for you, what was there a typical profile? Like, who were these guys?
I don't think there's a profile for them. It's everybody: fathers, businessmen, lawyers, black, white, Asian. I mean, it's everybody.
So it's not, I mean, you saw guys in suits with wedding rings come in.
Yep.
Did they pay you, or did they pay your trafficker?
They would give it to me, and then if I didn't immediately afterwards give it to my trafficker, then I'd be beat. And so it was never, nothing went to me.
Mm-hmm. Were you low during that time? I mean, were you having any feelings of, depression, or was it something like, I'm free and I've broken out of this existence? How was that for you?
I was definitely a low point in my life. I was ashamed of myself, and I didn't think that my parents would ever want me back. And I just had accepted this lifestyle and figured I would die doing it.
And we're back now with Jessica and her mom, Nacole. We have been hearing about how Nacole launched an 8-year legal and legislative battle to get justice for her daughter after Jessica was sold for sex on Backpage.com. Also with us now, Mary Mazzaro, director of the documentary I Am Jane Doe, which chronicled the legal battles against Backpage.com, including Jessica's story. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you so much.
So the detective saves you. Do you still talk to him?
Yes, actually. Yeah.
Is it true you keep in touch every year?
Yeah, he calls me on my birthday, and he's actually the godfather of my oldest child.
I love that. I love that, because he easily could have returned you back home and never spoken to you again.
Yeah, it's things like that that really make everything so much better.
Yeah,
Just,
restore your faith in
Yeah.
humanity. Not all men are meeting up in hotel rooms and
Exactly.
taking advantage of 15-year-old girls. Some men rescue them.
Yes, amen to that.
and stay in their lives forevermore. Nacole, you, one after the other, went after everyone.
Right.
So we started with the sex trafficker,
Yes. Baruti
Baruti Hopkins. Okay, and what happened to Baruti?
He was sentenced to 26 and a half years.
Okay, that's number one. Then you decided to go after one of the Johns.
So we had completed that battle with Baruti Hobson, and Detective Geyer came to us and needed to re-interview Jessica. He had found her picture on a computer of a purchaser or a John, and this guy was posing as a police officer and handcuffing and doing just extraordinary things to his victims. He got 14 years.
He got 14. So she wasn't done yet. So now she decides she's going to go after Backpage.com, which no one has been able to bring down, notwithstanding the fact that it's been out there doing this for a long time. And they rely on the First Amendment, saying it's First Amendment. We don't, whatever. You can't shut us down because of the First Amendment. And this is Nacole winds up not only suing Backpage in a civil action, but pushing to get the law changed in several states and pushing for national legislation that would shut down Backpage and protect women everywhere. In her testimony before Congress, Nacole testified. This is a middle-class woman just fighting the good fight. She testifies as follows: that claim to be protecting First Amendment rights while at the same time allowing my little girl to be sold on a website as a weekend special is wrong. And she won that fight, too. So, Mary, can you explain how? So, tell the audience what has just happened to Backpage.
So we created a film. We had a congressional briefing, and members of Congress said, we need to respond to what these plaintiffs there's been egregious wrong here. We really need to step forward. And so that's what happened. And last year, there was legislation that was filed both in the House and the Senate. And Google-funded groups were the primary opponent. Google-funded groups had rushed to the aid of Backpage in Jess's case
citing
and other
free speech
cases around the country that other children were filing. In Boston, there were children that filed suit, and the court dismissed that case, saying, even if Backpage had engaged, if you will, as a co-conspirator in the crime, because of an outdated internet law, we have to dismiss the case. Go to Congress. That's exactly what they've done. And in spite of all odds, that legislation was signed by the president just 2 weeks ago.
And Nacole and Jessica stood next to President Trump as he signed that bill into law. And you remember this because President Trump gets credit for doing nothing. This was a good thing
This was a
to
big
do.
deal.
It was.
And I have to say, I'm a lefty, and so I don't really agree with many of the president's policies. I will say when we were in there in the Oval Office, he was compassionate. He was kind to Nacole and Jessica and all of the other survivors there. He kept rubbing the back of one of the mothers, and I thought, this is...
Would you stop?
Okay.
Stop that. Not like that.
I'll say that he was very sympathetic because her child will never come home.
Yes, he was...
It was a rub of sympathy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a
clarify.
kind gesture.
Yep.
But
The kindest gesture of all was his signature on that bill.
Absolutely.
Which should have been done long ago. So it's not over. It's not over because the next step, they believe, is foreign agents are going to try to open up their own back pages here in our country to try to avoid our laws. This fight is ongoing, and we have to stay on top of it. I hope you're not giving up now that, I hope you're not done.
We are in the midst of the criminal investigation against the owners of Backpage.
Right. The owners of Backpage have been charged.
Yes, there was...
There's
last
7
week-
Backpage creators
9.
and employees who have been 9 now who have been charged.
90, they're held on 93 counts.
Yeah, and indictments unsealed.
Seven who have been charged with facilitating prostitution and other related crimes. They have yet to have their day in court. But the founder, is it the founder or the CEO?
Carl Ferrer, the CEO, just pled guilty. And so that is going to give the government a lot more information and evidence about what was happening behind the scenes.
He's turned because he knew. All right, I have to get to this because Google has given us a statement saying we have long contributed to many independent organizations because of their advocacy on a wide range of internet issues, including privacy, surveillance reform, and the open internet. We don't agree with every group 100% of the time, but they are independent and autonomous organizations.
Really? Really?
I'm going to have to...
Okay, sorry, I don't want to go off on a rant, but one of the primary opponents to this legislation has been Google and Google-funded groups, and we were bumping into them up and down the hill. And so that was extraordinary for a company whose motto is don't be evil, to be actively funding groups that were supporting Backpage and filing huge briefs in the cases against the children and against the plaintiffs.
For them, it's a First Amendment issue, but there's a real question about whether the First Amendment, how far does it go in protecting in the technology and the internet age a group like this that is facilitating repeated crimes against our youngest and most innocent? We did reach out to those Backpage defendants. We only heard from one, Andrew Padilla, who maintains his innocence and says there are First Amendment free speech issues here that he'll argue in court. We want to tell you that if you or someone you know may be the victim of sex trafficking, call the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 1-888-373-7888. We'll have that and more information at today.com/Megyn Today. We'll be right back.
Hello, Today fans. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking that button down there and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives.